He thought the courtroom was his chance at justice. Instead, the moment he walked in, every eye turned cold, as if his skin had already decided his fate. He wasn't a criminal. He was just a young man caught in the wrong place at the wrong time. But what happened inside those walls revealed more than one trial. It exposed the unspoken rules of a society where color could outweigh truth. The question isn't just whether he was guilty, but whether he ever had a chance. For most of his life, Darius tried to keep things simple. He was 24, working double shifts at a repair shop and saving every spare dollar to put himself through night classes. His neighbors knew him as the kid who always offered to carry groceries for the elderly, the one who smiled even when exhaustion weighed heavily on his shoulders. Life wasn't easy, but it was his, and he was determined to make something of it. Every morning he left before sunrise, his backpack slung over one shoulder, headphones in, moving to the rhythm of his dreams. The city streets were familiar, almost comforting. He had walked them so many times, each turn a quiet reminder of how far he had come from the boy who grew up with little but hope. But beneath that routine, Darius also carried an awareness he never spoke of. The feeling of being watched differently, judged more harshly, noticed for all the wrong reasons. He tried to shake it off, focusing instead on the future he was building. Then came that evening, one that began like any other. The air was warm, traffic buzzed in the distance, and Darius had plans to visit his mother after class. He had no reason to think anything would be different. No reason to imagine that the path he had walked countless times before was about to turn into the scene of a nightmare. Because in just a few moments, Darius would discover that no matter how hard he worked, no matter how much good he tried to do, some people only saw the color of his skin. Each day in court chipped away at him. He remembered the night of his arrest with chilling clarity, the officer's shouts, the sudden force against his back, the sound of handcuffs snapping shut before he could even ask why. He had tried to explain, but his words dissolved in the air, unheard and unwanted. Now those same accusations were echoing inside this courtroom, given legitimacy by the very system that promised justice. The first time Darius stepped into the courtroom, he felt as if the walls themselves were closing in. The murmurs from the gallery, the cold echo of the judge's gavel, the whispered conversations that stopped when he entered, it all pressed down on him like a weight he couldn't shake. He wasn't just on trial for the crime he didn't commit. He felt as though his very existence was being measured and judged. The charges were heavy: theft, assault, resisting arrest. Words that didn't belong to him, yet now clung to his name like a shadow. His lawyer explained the stakes in hushed tones, but Darius barely heard. His eyes kept drifting toward the prosecution's table, where men in crisp suits looked at him with a certainty that made his blood run cold. They weren't questioning his guilt. They had already decided it. As the witnesses spoke, Darius's stomach twisted. A shop owner claimed to have seen Darius near the scene, though the description barely matched. Another insisted he fit the type, a phrase that cut deeper than any accusation. These weren't evidence. They were prejudice, disguised as testimony. With each word, Darius felt further painted into a corner he couldn't escape. And then came the silence, the moments between each statement, where Darius could feel the jury's eyes on him. Not studying his face, but his skin. Not weighing facts, but stereotypes. He wanted to scream that he was innocent, that he had been walking home, that he was being swallowed alive by a lie. But he stayed quiet, his lawyer's hand gripping his arm, warning him not to react. And yet amid the storm there was one detail he couldn't ignore: the judge. At first, Darius couldn't place him. But as the days went on, memories surfaced. Playground afternoons, shared lunches in school, the laughter of two boys who once thought the world was theirs. The judge was his childhood friend, a man who once knew him as more than a defendant in a courtroom. But recognition didn't bring relief. It brought questions. Would that old bond help him, or would it make things worse? Could someone who knew his innocence as a child still look past the color of his skin as a man? The silence grew unbearable. The prosecutor's voice rang out, "Ladies and gentlemen, the evidence is clear. This man is guilty." The words cracked through the air like a sentence already passed. Darius's throat burned, his fists clenched against the table, his body trembling with rage. He dared not show. He had done everything right. Worked hard, stayed out of trouble, believed in the promise that justice was blind. But here, in this moment, he saw the truth laid bare. Justice had never been blind. It had always been watching him. The gavel struck. The jury filed out to deliberate. And as the heavy doors closed behind them, Darius sat frozen, staring at the man who once called him a friend, wondering if that friendship would save him or bury him. Hours felt like days as Darius sat waiting, the ticking clock louder than his own heartbeat. When the jury returned, their faces told the story before a single word was spoken. Guilty. The word rang out, heavy and final, shattering what little hope he had left. His lawyer lowered his head, the gallery whispered, and Darius's body went numb. But what cut deepest wasn't the verdict, it was the judge. The same boy who once shared his dreams, who once called him a brother, now sat silent as the system devoured him. No words of doubt, no flicker of courage, just a gavel striking, sealing his fate. Darius was led away in chains, but the weight he carried was heavier than steel. It was the realization that no matter how hard he worked, no matter how much good he tried to do, society had already written his story. His innocence had been invisible from the start. And while this was his trial, it wasn't just his story. It was a reflection of countless lives. Lives cut short, futures stolen, families broken by the quiet, relentless power of racism disguised as justice. Darius became another name in a system that feeds on silence. Another reminder that fairness in the courtroom is not guaranteed when skin color becomes the evidence. So the question remains, how many more must fall before the system truly changes? How many more innocent men and women must carry the burden of being guilty until proven innocent, when the world sees them as guilty from the start? This is not just Darius's story. It is ours. It is now. And it demands that we ask ourselves, when will justice finally mean justice for all?